The air was thick with smoke, the once blue skies now a swirling mass of black and red. The small alien race, whose cities had once thrived with life and hope, now stood on the brink of extinction. Their homes, grand structures that had withstood centuries of progress, were now reduced to ashes, consumed by the flames of war. The streets that once echoed with the laughter of children and the hum of daily life were now eerily silent, save for the distant sound of explosions and the cries of the dying. In the heart of the city, where the tallest buildings had stood, only charred remains and scattered debris were left. The alien survivors huddled in the shadows, their faces drawn and weary from the endless days of battle. They had fought fiercely, but it had been in vain. The invaders were relentless, their forces far superior in number and strength. The alien race had tried everything: diplomacy, resistance, even desperate attempts to strike back, but nothing had stopped the invaders. Now, there was only silence and the weight of inevitable defeat. The alien leader, a figure who had once stood tall and proud, now slumped in the corner of a crumbling room. His face was grim, his eyes dark with the understanding that their time was running out. Around him, his people were gathered. Some were crying, others were silent, holding on to the last shreds of hope. Their world was dying, their people were falling, and there was nothing left but the remnants of a once great civilization. His voice, weak and strained, broke the silence. "We can't hold on much longer. They've destroyed everything. The cities are gone. The people are gone. If someone doesn't hear our call, we will be lost forever." His words were a bitter truth, one that the others had come to accept but could not bear to say aloud. There was no way to win. The enemy was too powerful. But even in the face of such despair, the leader did not give up. He had seen his people's strength, their resilience, but it wasn't enough now. They were dying, and all he could do was hope. Hope that someone, somewhere, might hear their cry for help. It was a long shot, an impossible hope, but it was all they had left. Turning to his communications panel, the leader keyed in a message, his hand trembling as he worked. His fingers moved slowly, as though weighted down by the gravity of what he was about to do. It wasn't just a plea for help. It was their last chance at survival. His people needed a miracle. "We need help," he typed. "We can't survive much longer. Please, save us." The words seemed too simple for the enormity of their situation, but they were the only words that mattered now. His people watched in silence as the message was sent out, the small flicker of hope within their hearts growing ever so slightly. There was nothing left to fight with, no more strategies to try. The message was their only weapon now, a final act of defiance against the inevitable. They were putting their faith in the stars, in the possibility that someone, somewhere, might hear their cry. The alien leader leaned back, his mind clouded with doubt. Who could possibly help them now? Their civilization had been reduced to rubble, their strength depleted. What chance did they have? But the fear in his heart could not overcome the faint spark of hope that still clung to him. If someone out there could help, if someone could hear their message, maybe, just maybe, they could survive this. Outside the shattered building, the fires continued to burn. The invaders were relentless, advancing with their dark, unstoppable might. Their war machines tore through the remains of the alien cities with terrifying precision, destroying everything in their path. The alien race had once been proud and strong, but now they were broken and scattered, clinging to a last thread of hope. The leaders' thoughts drifted to the past, when their people had been thriving, their cities bustling with activity, their technology advancing at a rapid pace. They had been a race of peace, striving for unity, but now their peace had been shattered, their unity dissolved. The invaders didn't care about their history, their culture, or their achievements. They only cared about power, about taking everything the aliens had built and leaving nothing behind. He closed his eyes, fighting back the tears. It wasn't supposed to be this way. They had tried so hard, worked so tirelessly to protect their people. But in the end, it hadn't been enough. The invaders were too strong, and now, as the world they had known crumbled around them, they were left to wonder. Who would answer their call? Who would hear their desperate plea for help in the vast emptiness of space? The message sent, The leader and his people gathered together in the final moments of peace they could find. They would wait, not knowing if anyone would answer, but hoping that their call would be heard. They had nothing left but each other and their last, desperate hope that someone out there might save them. The darkness around them grew ever deeper, but somewhere, far beyond their world, a small flicker of hope was born days past, and the planet's final countdown seemed to tick away with an unbearable slowness. The alien survivors huddled together in the ruins, their bodies weak, their minds heavy with the knowledge that time was running out. Every corner of their cities, once vibrant and full of life, was now a battlefield. Buildings that had stood for centuries were reduced to rubble, and the smoke of their homes rising into the sky seemed like the final breath of a dying world. The message they had sent into the void, their last cry for help, hung in the air like an unanswered question. They had no way of knowing if anyone had received it, if anyone out there had heard their desperate plea. But they held onto the flickering hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would come. After all, what else could they do? The enemy was too strong. Their defenses had crumbled, and their people were too few to mount any further resistance. They could only wait. Every day, the invaders grew closer, their forces sweeping across the planet with terrifying efficiency. The alien survivors watched helplessly as the enemy moved through their cities, crushing what little remained of their civilization. The ground shook with the sound of heavy machines, the sky was filled with the hum of ships, and the air was thick with the acrid stench of burning buildings. But even as their world fell apart, the survivors clung to the hope that their call for help would be answered. They had heard legends of distant civilizations, of powerful allies who fought for justice across the stars. Perhaps, in their desperation, they were imagining things, clinging to fantasies that were beyond their reach. The alien leader often found himself wondering if it was foolish to hold on to this hope. Was it too late for them? Had they already been abandoned by the universe? But then, one morning, a sudden change in the air caught everyone's attention. The survivors, weary from the days of silence, noticed something strange, a faint hum in the distance, growing louder, closer. It was unlike any sound they had ever heard before. It wasn't the rumble of the invaders' machines. It wasn't the usual crackling of fires. It was something else entirely, a deep, resonating hum, like the sound of engines coming to life. For a moment, the survivors froze, unsure if they were imagining things. But the hum grew louder, more distinct. It wasn't a figment of their hope. It was real. And it was heading toward them. The alien leader, his heart pounding, rushed to the outskirts of the crumbling city where the sound seemed to be coming from. As he reached the broken edge of the city, his eyes widened with disbelief. In the distance, against the gray sky, a dark shape emerged, slowly becoming clearer as it moved closer. It was massive, far larger than anything they had seen before. A ship, no, a warship, cutting through the sky like a blade, its engines glowing a menacing red. The survivors gathered, their eyes fixed on the massive warship as it descended toward them. It was unlike anything they had ever dreamed of. Its sheer size, its intimidating shape, and the low hum of its engines sent a ripple of awe through the alien race. It was their last hope, the hope they had clung to when they thought there was no chance left. The ship landed with a thunderous roar, shaking the ground beneath the survivors' feet. The dust and debris from the impact swirled into the air, obscuring their view for a moment. But then, as the dust settled, the doors of the ship opened slowly, revealing figures stepping out onto the planet's surface. The aliens stared in shock and disbelief. These were no invaders. They were human. The survivors had heard rumors, whispers of these beings, Deathworlders, they called them. But they had never imagined that humanity, the race that was said to be ruthless and powerful beyond measure, would come to their aid. The aliens had begged for mercy, for salvation, but they had never expected this. Humans, in their imposing warships, arriving to answer their desperate call for help. The leader stepped forward, his voice trembling but strong. "Are you here to help us?" His voice cracked with emotion, the weight of his question pressing down on him like a physical burden. The human commander, tall and imposing, stepped forward, his armor gleaming in the light of the burning sky. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes carried the weight of something far greater than the alien leader had expected. Something that went beyond the military might that they had only heard of in legends. "We're here to finish what you started," the commander said. His voice was deep and cold, yet carried an undeniable authority. "We don't do small aid. We do total destruction of your enemies. And we don't stop until the job is done." The alien leader's heart skipped a beat. The humans hadn't come to offer food, or medicine, or a simple defense. They had come to fight, to bring war on the invaders in a way that would leave nothing but ashes. The thought was terrifying, but also a spark of hope. This was the help they had been waiting for. It wasn't the kind of help they had imagined, but it was help nonetheless. The human forces began to spread out, setting up their own equipment, deploying troops, and preparing for the battle that would soon unfold. The aliens, though unsure of what was to come, began to feel a sense of power returning to them. The humans were here, not just to help them survive, but to ensure that the enemy was annihilated. Their planet would not fall to the invaders. Not today. Not while the humans had arrived. As the human warships settled into the alien atmosphere, the survivors felt the earth tremble beneath them. The sheer force of the ship's landing was overwhelming, sending vibrations through the ground that rattled the very bones of the planet. The survivors, still uncertain of what to expect, stood motionless, eyes fixed on the massive ship now towering over them. The warship was unlike anything they had ever seen, its sleek, metallic surface shimmering with power. It looked like something from a nightmare, yet there was an undeniable sense of awe that crept into their hearts. The survivors watched, breathless, as the ship's massive doors began to open with a low, mechanical groan. The air around them seemed to grow heavier, thick with anticipation. Moments later, figures in dark, gleaming armor emerged, stepping onto the alien soil with a sound like thunder. They moved with precision and purpose, their movements swift and coordinated, as though they had practiced this moment 1,000 times. The soldiers were human, their faces obscured by helmets, but their presence was enough to send a chill down the spines of the alien survivors. For a brief moment, the world seemed to stand still. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and burning cities, the evidence of the devastation that had plagued the planet. The aliens, too exhausted and broken to fight any longer, had to admit that they were nothing compared to the power these humans displayed. They had called for help, but this was not what they had imagined. This wasn't a small, peaceful rescue mission. The humans had come to destroy the invaders completely, and in their cold, military efficiency, they were a force to be reckoned with. The alien leader stepped forward, his heart racing in his chest. He had hoped for help, but what he saw now was beyond anything he could have imagined. He had expected healers, doctors, or maybe some sort of peaceful force. Instead, he was staring at warriors, cold and calculated, who spoke only of one thing: war. "Are you really here to help us?" the alien leader asked, his voice tinged with both fear and awe. He had never seen anything like this before. The human commander, tall and imposing in his battle armor, regarded the leader with an unreadable expression. His eyes, cold and sharp, locked onto the alien's gaze. "We don't do small help," the commander replied, his voice a low, steady rumble. "We finish what needs to be done. And right now, your planet needs saving, not with food or medicine, but with firepower. We're here to end the war. We're here to crush your enemies." The alien leader stood in stunned silence for a moment, trying to process the gravity of the situation. The humans didn't just offer aid. They had come to fight. They had come with fleets, with weapons, and with the resolve to burn everything that stood in their way. And yet, despite the overwhelming fear, the alien leader felt something stir within him. Maybe this was the salvation they needed. Maybe, just maybe, the humans had the strength to stop the invaders and turn the tide of the war. The survivors, still in disbelief, began to gather around, watching the humans with a mixture of awe and trepidation. They had seen destruction before, but never on this scale. The Deathwelders had brought death to their cities, but the humans were here to bring something different, a raw, unrelenting force of nature. They were not here to negotiate. They were here to annihilate the invaders. "Where do we begin?" the alien leader asked, his voice filled with an uncertain hope. He wasn't sure if he was ready to accept what the humans were offering, but he knew they had no other choice. The enemy was still advancing, and time was running out. The human commander gave a single nod, his gaze never leaving the alien leader. "We start by wiping out their foothold," he said. "We move fast, we move hard, and we show them that no one threatens a world under our protection. You've made a call for help. Now, we answer." The survivors, still stunned by the sheer power and efficiency of the humans, could hardly believe it. The humans were going to fight, and they would fight with everything they had. For the first time in what felt like years, a sense of hope began to stir among the alien survivors. It wasn't the kind of hope that came from peaceful negotiations or gentle assistance. It was the hope that came from knowing that they would not be left to fall alone. The Deathwelders, with all their might, would not stand a chance against the humans' overwhelming strength. As the humans began to deploy their advanced weaponry and form their battle plans, the alien survivors could only watch in awe. They had no idea what to expect from the coming battle, but they knew one thing for sure. The humans weren't just here to help, they were here to change everything. The war for their world was about to begin, and it would not be a battle fought with words or treaties. It would be fought with fire, with strength, and with the cold, unflinching will of the humans who had come to their aid. The human forces began to move, preparing their war machines, and the aliens, for the first time in what seemed like forever, felt a glimmer of hope. The battle was far from over, but the Deathwelders were no longer the only ones with power on their side. They had summoned help, but the help they had received was more than they had ever dreamed of. The warships that roared out of the void were not just ships of war, they were ships of salvation, and they had come to bring an end to the destruction that had been tearing their world apart. The ground shook as the human warships began to mobilize, their massive engines igniting with an ominous hum. The survivors, still reeling from the sudden appearance of these powerful, unknown allies, watched as the humans prepared to engage the enemy. It was nothing like they had ever seen before. The aliens had known what war was, but they had never witnessed such an efficient, terrifying display of military power. The humans were not only ready to fight, they were determined to finish the job and wipe out the invaders. The alien leader, now standing at the head of a small council of survivors, could hardly contain his disbelief. "They are really doing this," he whispered to himself. For so long, they had been fighting with whatever little strength they had left, knowing they couldn't win. The Deathwelders had been unstoppable, and the survivors had given up on the idea of a rescue. But now, here the humans were, moving like a storm through the sky, ready to strike with a power the aliens could only dream of. The human commander's voice crackled over their communication channels. "Prepare yourselves. The enemy is still on the ground, but they won't be for long. This ends today." The alien survivors looked at each other, a flicker of hope in their eyes. They had never felt such raw, unfiltered power before. The humans weren't just helping, they were taking control, bringing war to the very doorstep of the Deathwelders. This was their world, their fight, but for the first time, they weren't alone. The humans had made it clear that they weren't here to save the day with soft promises or gentle diplomacy. They were here to annihilate their enemy, and in that moment, the survivors realized that they had underestimated what was possible. The battle began as the human ships fired their first salvo, shaking the planet beneath them. The Deathwelders, who had once seemed so confident in their power, were now facing an opponent they had not anticipated. Their machines, though large and heavily armored, were no match for the sheer firepower of the humans' advanced weapons. Explosions lit up the horizon, and the skies filled with the sounds of gunfire and the roar of engines as the human warships engaged the invaders' fleet. The alien leader, standing beside the human commander as he watched the chaos unfold, couldn't help but feel a strange mixture of awe and fear. The humans had made their presence known, and their tactics were brutal, efficient, and cold. They wasted no time on negotiations or mercy. The enemy was not given a chance to retreat or regroup. The Deathwelders were crushed with surgical precision. "This is what we needed," the alien leader muttered. He had hoped for a miracle, but what the humans brought was something more tangible, more immediate. It wasn't just hope, it was action. As the battle raged, The alien survivors joined in the fight, although they were still hesitant, unsure of how to contribute against such overwhelming firepower. But as the hours passed and the human warships continued their relentless assault, the survivors realized that their role now was simple: to support the humans, to assist in any way they could. With the help of their new allies, the invaders were slowly being pushed back, their forces scattered and disorganized. The battle wasn't over, but the tide was turning. The Deathwelders, once so confident, were beginning to realize that this wasn't just another conquest. This was something different. The humans weren't interested in territory or power. They were interested in victory, and they would take it no matter the cost. In the midst of the fighting, the rebel leader turned to one of the human officers, his eyes wide with shock and admiration. "You're not holding back," he said, his voice filled with awe. The human officer, a woman with fierce eyes and a steady hand, gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "When we fight to win. There's no room for hesitation. The invaders won't stop unless we make them." Her words carried the weight of the truth. The humans had not come to negotiate, to reason with the Deathwelders, or to strike deals. They had come to obliterate them. The alien leader could now see that the human forces were relentless, driven by something that went beyond the battlefield: a need to protect those who could not protect themselves. The Deathwelders had made the mistake of underestimating humanity's power, but now they would pay the price. The battle stretched on for hours, with human forces cutting through the invaders like a hot knife through butter. The survivors, though exhausted and struggling to keep up, found new strength in the human warriors' ferocity. The battle that had seemed so hopeless just hours before now seemed winnable. The invaders were retreating, their forces scattered and in disarray. When the final wave of enemy fighters was obliterated, the skies cleared, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, the alien leader saw a faint glimmer of hope on the horizon. The Deathwelders had been defeated, at least for now. As the human warships pulled back, leaving the aliens to survey the destruction they had wrought together, the alien leader stood silent for a moment, watching the stars above. It wasn't just that they had won. It was that they had done so with an unwavering will, a strength that had been drawn from an unexpected place. The humans had answered their desperate call for help, but they hadn't just come to save them. They had come to end the war on their terms. The alien leader turned to his people. "We're not done yet, but today, we've won something more than just survival. We've won the chance to rebuild. And we will rebuild, together." The survivors, once so broken and hopeless, now felt a surge of determination. This was the beginning of something new, something they had thought lost forever. And as the final remnants of the invaders' forces fled into the distance, the alien leader knew that the war for their world had not been won with kindness or mercy. It had been won with firepower, strength, and the relentless will to survive. The Deathwelders had learned that lesson the hard way. The battle was over, but the aftermath was deafening. The once vibrant cities of the alien race now lay in ruins, the remnants of destruction scattered across the land. The sky, still filled with smoke and ash, was a grim reminder of the cost of this brief victory. Yet, amidst the destruction, there was a glimmer of something unexpected, a feeling of hope, of possibility. The alien survivors, though battered and broken, stood tall as they surveyed the damage, knowing that they had been given a chance to live, to rebuild, and to fight on. The human warships, their engines now silent, floated in the distance, a massive presence that still commanded awe and fear. The humans had come with overwhelming force, and though the battle had been won, the alien survivors knew they could never return to the way things were. The invasion had changed everything. The fight for survival had only just begun. The alien leader walked through the ruins of the city, his footsteps slow and measured. He had seen the destruction firsthand: families torn apart, homes lost, and the last remnants of their culture reduced to dust. Yet, he couldn't help but feel something stirring within him. The humans had arrived not with gifts of kindness, but with power, and in doing so, they had given the aliens something they hadn't felt in years: hope. He looked up to the sky, where the human warships hovered like guardians, their sleek, deadly forms a stark contrast to the ruined landscape below. Despite everything, despite the destruction and the violence, the humans had not just come to fight, they had come to win. And that was something the alien race had never imagined would happen. They had spent so long fighting alone, their pleas for help falling on deaf ears, but now they had been saved, not by mercy, but by raw strength. The rebel leader approached him, her face grim but determined. "We've won today, but we both know the Deathwelders won't stop. They'll come again, and we'll have to be ready." The alien leader nodded solemnly. "Yes, but now we know we're not alone. The humans have proven that they will not let us fall. And that changes everything." She paused, looking over at the human forces, who were now beginning to secure their positions. "But what do we do now? The Deathwelders are still out there, and they won't give up. If we can't stand strong together, we'll lose this planet for good." He glanced at her, his expression hardening. "We fight, like we always have. But this time, we fight with the strength of the humans beside us. We rebuild. We recover. And we prepare for the next wave." The rebellion had always been about survival, but now it was about more than that. It was about securing a future for their people, about ensuring that their world didn't fall to the same fate that so many others had met in the face of invaders. The humans had taught them that survival was not a passive act. It was a fight that required strength, unity, and the willingness to take risks. The survivors began to gather their strength, organizing into new groups to secure the area, take stock of their resources, and tend to the wounded. The humans, though distant and focused on their own operations, offered their assistance, bringing advanced medical supplies and technology to aid in the recovery. They were not a peaceful force, but they were undeniably effective, and for the first time in a long while, the alien survivors found themselves with a purpose once more. But as they worked, a dark thought lingered in the minds of the alien leaders. The Deathwelders would come back. They had only been delayed, not defeated. The victory they had won was fragile, and there was no guarantee that the humans would stay. The warships above could leave just as quickly as they had arrived, and if that happened, the alien race would be left to face their enemies once again, without the strength of their newfound allies. The alien leader met with the human commander, who had remained at the head of the human forces. He was a tall, imposing figure, his face set in lines of weariness and resolve. His eyes, however, betrayed a sense of something deeper, something that wasn't just about battle or victory. There was an understanding there, a shared sense of purpose that transcended the politics of war. "We've done what we came to do," the human commander said, his voice steady and calm. "But this planet isn't out of danger yet. The Deathwelders are like a disease. They won't stop until they have everything. And we won't stop until we have our world back," the alien leader replied firmly. "We owe you our survival, but we cannot sit idle. We need to rebuild. We need to prepare." The commander nodded, acknowledging the truth in the alien leader's words. "We'll stay as long as we can. We won't leave you stranded. But you must understand, this fight is far from over. The Deathwelders are relentless, and they will return. The question is, will you be ready when they do?" The alien leader clenched his fists, the weight of their conversation sinking deep within him. The humans had come to fight, to protect, but they weren't here for the long haul. This world, their world, was still theirs to defend. It wasn't just a battle for survival anymore. It was a battle for their future. As the sun began to set, casting an eerie glow over the charred landscape, the alien leader looked up at the stars. The battle for their world had only just begun, and while the humans had given them a fighting chance, it would be up to the alien survivors to decide what came next. The Deathwelders would return, but they would face something different this time. A people who refused to be erased, a people who now knew the true cost of survival. In that moment, the alien leader knew that no matter how powerful the invaders were, no matter the odds stacked against them, the fight for their world was not over. It had only just begun. And this time, they wouldn't be alone. The days following the human intervention passed quickly, with a strange mixture of recovery and preparation. The alien survivors, still shaken by the horrors they had endured, now worked side by side with their human allies. They were learning things they had never imagined possible. New ways to fight, new technologies, and ways to rebuild their shattered world. But underneath it all, there was a constant, gnawing fear that the war was far from over. The human warships remained overhead, silent sentinels in the sky. They weren't just a sign of victory, but also a reminder that the Deathwelders' invasion hadn't been completely repelled. The warships had brought firepower, but not permanence. The humans had come to help, but they had not come to stay forever. And as the survivors worked to rebuild, the alien leaders' thoughts turned once more to the question they had all been avoiding. What would happen when the humans left? The alien leader stood at the edge of a ruined city, watching as the human engineers worked tirelessly, using advanced tools and machines to clear the rubble and restore some semblance of order. The humans were efficient, their methods brutal but effective. The aliens, though grateful for the aid, couldn't ignore the differences. The humans weren't here to make friends or to heal. They were here to win. And when the Deathwelders returned, they would be a force unlike any the aliens had ever encountered. At least now, they had a chance to survive. The rebel leader joined the alien leader, her expression thoughtful as she surveyed the human efforts. "They are rebuilding faster than we ever could," she said. "They don't seem to care for what we've lost. They care for what they can take back." The alien leader nodded, his gaze never leaving the human soldiers. "They are soldiers. They think in terms of strategy, not culture. They've come to fight, not to understand. But we need them now. And we need to make sure they understand that this world, our world, belongs to us. We'll fight with them, but we must also fight for ourselves." The rebel leader, her face hardened by the weight of their struggle, looked at him. "Do you think they'll leave when the battle's over? When the Deathwelders are driven away?" The alien leader paused, considering the question carefully. "They'll leave when they've accomplished what they came for, but they won't forget us. The Deathwelders are relentless, and we can't rely on the humans to fight our battles forever. We have to be ready. We have to take what they've shown us and make it our own. This world is ours to defend, and when the time comes, we will defend it, not just with the humans, but with our own strength." The alien leader's words rang out across the ruins like a rallying cry. The humans might be their allies, but they could not rely on them for their future. They would fight together, but they had to fight for their independence. The rebellion had started as a desperate plea for survival, but now it was becoming something more. They were fighting not just for survival, but for their sovereignty, their freedom. In the days that followed, the survivors began to train, learning the ways of human tactics, adapting the advanced technology left behind, and strengthening their resolve. The humans had shown them that they were capable of winning, of conquering. Now, the aliens needed to learn that same lesson. They would learn how to fight with strength, with strategy, and with the hope that they would never again be reduced to this level of weakness. The alien leader had seen it in their eyes, the spark of defiance, the will to stand up and fight back. They had lost everything, but they had gained something in return, the will to rise again. It wasn't just the humans who had given them hope, it was their own survival instinct. The Deathwelders might have crushed their cities, but they had not crushed their spirit. The human commander, having observed the growing strength of the alien resistance, approached the alien leader. "You're teaching them well," the commander said, his voice filled with respect. "They've adapted quickly. Soon, they'll be ready to stand on their own." The alien leader met his gaze, his eyes filled with a quiet determination. "We'll be ready. We've learned from you. But we will also fight our own fight. We will not let our people be subjugated again." The human commander smiled, a grim acknowledgement of the alliance they had formed. "That's what I like to hear." But the alien leader knew that the fight ahead would be long and grueling. The Deathwelders would not give up easily. They would return, stronger and more determined than ever. And when they did, the survivors would be ready. The rebuilding efforts continued, and as the days turned into weeks, the alien survivors began to see the fruits of their labor. The humans had given them the tools, the knowledge, and the strength to fight back. But it was their own spirit, their own unyielding desire to survive, that would carry them through the coming storm. They had shown the Deathwelders that they would not go quietly. They had proven that they could stand, fight, and win. The human warships remained, their presence both a shield and a reminder that this war was far from over. But as the alien leader looked up at the skies, he knew that the Deathwelders' invasion had only one future: defeat. The alien race would stand, shoulder to shoulder with their human allies, and they would defend their world with everything they had. The days grew darker as the alien survivors, now bolstered by the human forces, prepared for the next phase of their fight. The Deathwelders had suffered a blow, but they had not been defeated. The humans' firepower had pushed them back, but it wasn't enough to completely drive them away. The invaders would regroup, and when they did, they would return stronger, more determined. It was only a matter of time. The alien leader stood before a map of their world, his mind racing with possibilities. The humans had shown them how to fight with strength, but the next battle would be different. The Deathwelders wouldn't make the same mistakes again. They would be ready for the humans' tactics, and the survivors would have to adapt. The human commander stood beside him, eyeing the map with the same intensity. "We need to hit them where it hurts," the commander said, his voice low and purposeful. "The Deathwelders have learned from their mistakes, but so have we. We can't afford to play by their rules. If we're going to win, we need to hit them hard, and we need to hit them fast." The alien leader nodded. "We've seen their weaknesses. We know where they're vulnerable. But it's not just about power, it's about strategy. If we can keep them off balance, we have a chance." The survivors gathered around, their faces weary but determined. They were no longer just hiding in the shadows, waiting for rescue. The humans had given them the strength to fight, but now it was their turn to lead. The next phase of the war would be different. They were not just fighting to survive anymore, they were fighting to reclaim their world. The rebel leader, standing in the back of the group, stepped forward. Her eyes, once filled with doubt, now shone with purpose. "We can't rely on the humans forever," she said, her voice strong. "They've given us the tools to fight, but we need to stand on our own. This is our world, and we can't let the Deathwelders take it from us again." The alien leader turned to face her, his gaze steady. "You're right. We've learned from the humans, but now it's time to show them what we can do. Together, we'll make sure the Deathwelders never take this planet again." The human commander stepped forward, his expression resolute. "We'll fight with you, but this is your fight, too. We're not here to do the heavy lifting for you. We're here to show you how to stand up and fight back." The survivors exchanged glances, and something shifted within them. They had learned that survival was not just about hiding or waiting for someone else to save them. It was about standing up, taking control, and fighting for their future. The Deathwelders had pushed them to the edge, but they had not broken them. They would not break now. As the battle plans took shape, the survivors worked together with the humans, combining their knowledge and strength. The humans brought advanced technology and tactics, while the aliens brought their deep understanding of their world. They would use the terrain to their advantage, setting traps, disrupting the Deathwelders' communication, and attacking when they least expected it. It would be a guerrilla war, swift and brutal, and they would not give the invaders a chance to regroup. The human warships, their engines now purring with readiness, prepared to launch the next wave. The alien survivors, their hearts filled with both fear and hope, knew that this battle would determine the future of their world. They had lost so much already, but they would not lose everything. As the sun set over the ruined landscape, the alien leader looked up at the darkening sky, where the human ships hovered like guardians. The Deathwelders would come. They would bring their fleet, their weapons, and their endless thirst for conquest. But the alien survivors would be ready. "This is our world," the alien leader whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "We will not let them take it." The survivors, now a united force with the humans by their side, stood tall and ready for whatever was to come. The Deathwelders had underestimated them once before, but they would not make that mistake again. This was not just a fight for survival. It was a fight for their planet, their people, and their future. And when the Deathwelders came, they would find something waiting for them that they never expected: resistance. The planet, though scarred and broken, was not defeated. It was still alive. And as long as there was breath in their bodies, the alien survivors would never stop fighting. The war was far from over, but now they had a chance. The night before the battle, the alien survivors gathered in their final meeting, the tension in the air so thick it felt like they could cut it with a knife. The human warships remained in the sky, their powerful forms casting long shadows over the desolate land below. The survivors had been preparing for this moment for what seemed like an eternity, knowing that the next day could be their last. But something had changed within them. The fear that had once consumed them was now mixed with a fire of determination. They had faced destruction, they had endured loss, and yet they were still here, still standing. And now, with the humans beside them, they had a chance, not just to survive, but to drive the Deathworlders off their planet forever. The alien leader stood at the front of the gathered survivors, his voice steady despite the weight of the coming battle. Tomorrow, we fight as one. The Deathworlders think we are weak, that we are divided, but they are wrong. We are stronger than they could ever imagine. We will strike with everything we have and show them that we are not afraid to defend our home. His words resonated through the crowd, filling them with the courage they so desperately needed. They were no longer just a broken people, hiding from the inevitable. They were a force, ready to reclaim what had been taken from them. The human commander stepped forward, his armored figure imposing and unwavering. The Deathworlders are fierce, and they have the firepower to destroy entire planets. But they don't have what you have, the will to survive, the will to protect your home. We've fought battles across the stars, and we know how to win. But we fight for something more than just victory. We fight for your future. The alien leader nodded, the weight of his next words heavy. You have shown us that we can still stand, that we don't have to face this alone. But now, it's up to us to show you that we can fight. Tomorrow, we are not just allies. We are brothers and sisters in this war. And together, we will bring an end to this invasion. The survivors, human and alien alike, exchanged looks of understanding. The battle was not just about survival. It was about reclaiming their world, about standing tall in the face of impossible odds and refusing to be erased from the universe. They had been pushed to the brink, but now they had something to fight for: each other, their planet, and their future. As the meeting ended, the survivors dispersed to their stations, preparing for the conflict ahead. The alien leader, still lost in thought, stood alone for a moment, looking out over the horizon. The fires from the destroyed cities flickered in the distance, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. But even in the darkness, there was light, a light that grew brighter with each passing moment, as hope, once thought lost, slowly began to grow again. The next morning, the first light of dawn broke over the war-torn landscape, illuminating the alien warships and the human forces as they took their positions. The battlefield stretched out before them, a vast, empty expanse that was about to become the stage for their final stand. The Deathworlders, though formidable, were not prepared for what awaited them. They had underestimated the resolve of the alien survivors and their human allies. The alien leader, now more confident than ever, looked up at the sky where the human ships hovered, ready to strike. He knew the cost of this battle would be high, but it would be worth it. We fight for everything, he whispered to himself. For our world, for our people, for our future. And with that, the survivors moved into position. The Deathworlders would come, but they would find something different this time. They would find a united force, a strength born not just from technology or firepower, but from the unbreakable will of those who refused to surrender. The final battle was about to begin. The future of the alien world, and perhaps even the future of the galaxy, would be decided here and now. The human warships roared into the sky, their weapons aimed at the invaders, while the alien forces prepared to fight with everything they had. The storm that had once seemed so unstoppable was now facing something it had never counted on: resistance. And this time, it would not be defeated so easily. The battle began with a deafening roar as the first salvo from the human warships cut through the air, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The Deathworlders, still reeling from their previous defeat, scrambled to regroup, but the humans' tactics were swift and brutal. The alien survivors, now fully aligned with their human allies, moved into position, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and adrenaline. They had prepared for this moment, but nothing could have prepared them for the sheer intensity of the fight ahead. The alien leader watched as the human warships unleashed a storm of firepower. The sky seemed to tear apart under the weight of the bombardment. Enemy ships were disintegrating before their eyes, some crashing to the ground, while others were engulfed in fire. The humans had brought an overwhelming force, but the aliens were not standing idly by. They had adapted, and now they fought alongside the humans with a newfound ferocity. They knew what was at stake. The Deathwelders, however, weren't finished yet. They responded quickly, unleashing their own deadly barrage. The sound of their weapons was almost deafening, as if the very earth itself was groaning under the assault. The survivors, both alien and human, ducked and weaved, using every piece of cover they could find. The ground shook with every explosion, and the sky seemed to burn with fire. There was no going back now. The alien rebel leader, who had once questioned the worth of this battle, now stood at the front lines, her face set in determination. She had seen the face of destruction, but now she saw something else, a chance to win. She turned to her fellow soldiers, a fire in her eyes. "We've fought to survive," she yelled above the chaos, "but today, we fight to take our world back. For every home, every life, every future." The cry rang out, and for the first time since the war began, the survivors charged forward with a sense of purpose. They were no longer just a ragtag resistance. They were a united force, fighting for everything they had lost, for everything they stood to gain. They moved together, attacking with precision, supporting each other with a level of coordination they had never thought possible. The humans, too, fought with a relentless determination, their war machines cutting through the enemy lines. For a moment, the Deathwelders faltered. They hadn't expected this kind of resistance. The aliens were using tactics they hadn't seen before, fighting like shadows, disappearing into the ruins and striking from unexpected angles. The human forces were relentless, outmatching the Deathwelders in terms of firepower and strategy. The invaders were being pushed back, their once confident position crumbling under the weight of the combined force of the humans and the alien survivors. But the Deathwelders were not easily defeated. They regrouped, bringing in reinforcements from their hidden bases. Their forces, though battered, rallied. The invaders had the advantage of numbers, and they were prepared to fight to the bitter end. The alien leader, seeing the Deathwelders' resolve, understood the true cost of this battle. They would need to outsmart the invaders, to use every trick in their arsenal if they were to win. "We can't fight them head-on," the alien leader called out. "We have to keep them off balance. We know their weaknesses, let's use that." With those words, the survivors launched another coordinated attack. They targeted the Deathwelders' command centers, cutting off their ability to communicate and coordinate. They planted explosives in key positions, disabling critical infrastructure. Every strike, every small victory was a blow to the enemy's morale. Slowly but surely, the Deathwelders' hold on the planet weakened. The human commander, watching from his ship above, issued new orders. "We take the fight to their command ships. If we break their leadership, we break their will to fight." With that directive, the human forces began their final push, directing their firepower at the heart of the Deathwelders' operations. The battle escalated, the air filled with a mixture of laser fire and explosions. The ground trembled as the alien survivors and human forces fought side by side, each group pushing the other forward. The alliance between them had grown stronger, and together, they had become a force the Deathwelders had not anticipated. Amidst the chaos, the alien leader and the human commander found themselves standing together at the front lines, watching the last of the Deathwelder forces begin to falter. Their combined effort had shattered the invaders' stronghold. The warships above had left the enemy with nowhere to hide. The final blow was coming, and the alien leader could feel it in their bones. As the last of the Deathwelders' command ships began to break apart in the distance, the survivors stood in stunned silence. The battle was won, but the cost was immeasurable. The ground was littered with the remnants of war, fallen soldiers, burning wreckage, and the silent testament of a fight that had consumed everything. The victory felt hollow, the survivors too exhausted to truly celebrate. But there was something else. The alien leader looked up at the sky where the human warships remained, their dark silhouettes stark against the fiery horizon. They had done it. The Deathwelders had been defeated. The alien race had reclaimed their world, but not without a price. The human commander, his face grim yet satisfied, placed a hand on the alien leader's shoulder. You fought well. This is your victory as much as it is ours. The alien leader nodded, his eyes tired but resolute. No, it's our victory, together. As the battle winds down and the survivors began to regroup, the alien leader felt the weight of their words. They had faced their greatest fear and survived. They had stood together, alien and human, and against all odds, they had driven the Deathwelders from their world. The road ahead would not be easy, but they had won. And for the first time in a long time, the alien survivors could finally look to the future, knowing that they had a chance to rebuild, to heal, and to live on, free from the shadow of invaders. The fight had cost them everything, but they had paid the price willingly. They had reclaimed their world. The aftermath of the battle was a scene of mixed emotions. The alien survivors, standing in the wreckage of their once thriving cities, could hardly believe that they had emerged victorious. The smoke still lingered in the air, and the remnants of their cities lay scattered across the landscape, but the Deathwelders had been driven off. Their once invincible forces were now in retreat, their pride shattered, and the survivors could feel the weight of their hard-won freedom settling around them. The human warships, now hovering high above, slowly began to withdraw. The battle was over, but the silence left in its wake was deafening. The planet had been saved, but at what cost? The survivors had lost so much: homes, families, culture, but they still had one thing left: the chance to rebuild. The alien leader stood before his people, his voice steady as he addressed them. We've fought and bled together. We've lost much, but we've also gained something invaluable. Our world is ours once again. And it's not just ours anymore. It's a place of hope for all those who stand against tyranny. We will rebuild. We will honor those we've lost by forging a future stronger than the one that was taken from us. His words, though simple, carried a deep sense of resolve. The survivors, some still wounded, others broken from the fight, now found themselves united in a way they had never been before. They had proven that no matter how powerful their enemies, they would never surrender. Their planet would live on, not because of anyone else's mercy, but because they had the strength to fight for it. The human commander, now standing beside the alien leader, gave him a nod of respect. You fought well, he said, his voice quiet but sincere. You proved your strength. The Deathwelders won't come back here. Not now, not ever. The alien leader looked at him, his face etched with weariness but also with a quiet pride. We couldn't have done it without you. You've shown us a strength we didn't even know we had. And we've learned that survival isn't about waiting for help. It's about standing up and taking control of your own fate. The human commander smiled, though there was a hint of sadness in his eyes. It's not over yet. You'll have to defend this world again. Maybe sooner than you think. But now you know that you're not alone. There are forces out there who will stand with you. As the final remnants of the Deathwelder fleet disappeared from the sky, the alien leader knew that their future was uncertain. The war had left scars, and they would never forget the price they had paid. But for the first time, they felt the weight of the fight in a different way. They had reclaimed their world. They had survived. In the days that followed, the survivors began to rebuild, using the technology left behind by the humans and what little remained of their own resources. It was slow work, there was still so much to do, but there was a sense of purpose in the air. They were not just restoring their cities, they were reclaiming their place in the galaxy. The alliance with the humans, though born of necessity, had evolved into something more. The Deathwelders might have underestimated the alien race, but they had also underestimated the power of unity. The humans had shown them how to fight, how to survive, but the aliens had shown themselves that they could stand on their own, as equals. The human forces did not stay long, their warships departing into the vast reaches of space as their mission concluded. The alien leader watched them go, knowing that they had made an ally for life, someone who had shown them that survival was not a passive act. It was something that could be seized. The alien race was no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the future. They had a chance to rebuild, to heal, and to flourish. The war had left them scarred, but it had also left them stronger. They were a people reborn, a people who had faced the darkness and emerged on the other side. As the alien leader stood at the edge of the ruined city, looking out over the vast land that was now theirs again, he could see the beginnings of a new world. The fires of destruction had finally burned out, leaving behind the ash of the old world. But in the distance, he could already see the first shoots of a new life taking root. They had fought for their survival, but now they would fight for their future. The Deathworlders might have taken their cities, their homes, and their loved ones, but they would never take their spirit. The alien leader smiled, his heart filled with hope for the first time in what felt like forever. This world, their world, was theirs again. And no one would ever take it from them again.